Imagine being curled up in your favorite chair with a steaming mug of your favorite hot drink. Outside the window, it's raining, and you have a dog eared copy of your favorite book in your hand. There's a dog on your feet, or maybe there's a cat on your lap who's purring, and there's a fire crackling in a hearth a few feet away, right? You are warm, you are safe, and you are untouchable. Sounds like heaven, yeah? Now let's flip the script a little bit, alright? You are hunched over a noodle counter in a rain-slicked street of a neon city making plans with rebels whose hope is their most effective weapon against the oppressive forces who are facing them. You can feel their belief, you can hear it in their songs, you know that maybe they actually have a chance at this, and despite yourself, you believe. Hopepunk is not exactly a new concept, but when it comes to books, it's kind of a new genre. And cozy has been taking the world by storm since the pandemic. But it's not exactly new, just like Hopepunk. But why now, right? Why is the world pivoting so hard toward these stories in this moment? Well, we're going to get into that today. Hello, friends, and welcome to Authority. I am E. Probilski. I am an author, an editor, and a public speaker who talks about writing, editing, neurodivergence, a whole bunch of things, all kind of intermingled together. I have been in the publishing world for almost 20 years now, and I'm on the board of the EFA, the Editorial Freelancers Association, as well as working with Author Nation to help with their Northeastern cohort. So, I've been doing this for a hot minute. Before we get too far, though, I'm going to define these two concepts because not everybody really knows what they are. And even if you do, you may not know it yet by those names. So let's define them, okay? So cozy are books that feel comforting, lighthearted, usually more domestic, small town kind of settings. Violence or sex happen off screen, and there's a lot of like found family and happy endings, and everything kind of just feels good at the end of the story. And it's usually not super high stakes the entire way through. Cozy romance, for example, is like The Good Witch, which I like that series, so sue me. Or most Hallmark movies are kind of cozy. Cozy mysteries are ones like Murder, She Wrote. There's a lot of books and series like those, but those are the ones that kind of come to my mind when I think cozy. It probably shows my age, but we're not going to talk about that one. Um, Down below in the comments, let me know your favorite stories and cozy stories. I need more of them and maybe more recent ones. Um, Hopepunk is characterized by social disruption, but for the positive. So we're talking like resistance, rebellion, all of these things being antidotes to cynicism and hopelessness and apathy. So that is sort of where we're looking at here. Alan Kensley, who's a scholar, describes it as a contrast to the noble bright genre, in the sense that noble bright's about the hero, whereas Hope Punk celebrates a broader cast of characters. It's more like a collective response. I paraphrase that from Wikipedia's entry about Hope Punk, so citing my sources here. Hope Punk also doesn't shy away from like anger or grittiness, and cozy sort of turns the camera away where Hope Punk can have a let on screen. There's still a lot of positivity and brightness, but it's a little heavier. If cozy's your cup of tea, your favorite book, current purring cat, cozy chair, rainy window, Hope Punk is like a cup noodle you drink under a neon sign. And that is really the difference in vibe between these two things. Granted, Hope Punk doesn't have to be cyberpunk. It's just where my mind goes when I think about it. So we get back to the question of why these genres? Why now? You may have already guessed it, and if you have, kudos, but it's because the world right now feels unstable and miserable in a huge number of ways. Dystopian fiction and grimdark were incredibly popular and really seen as the pinnacles of literary excellence just before the pandemic. But the global trauma of what happened during the pandemic, during COVID-19 and the lockdowns, has made us all kind of like need something a little softer, a little more supportive, a little bit less horrifying. And Hope Punk it can be gritty and can have like blood on its knuckles, so to speak, but it isn't necessarily hopeless. It's not necessarily dark. And as much as it feels like the lockdowns, 2020, all of that was a bad dream. Trauma kind of has that effect on people. It does have lasting effects on our hearts, on our minds, and on societies. We are still dealing with the trauma that we all experienced during that time. And there's beyond that, there's so much going on in the world right now between the conflicts in Sudan and Gaza and Ukraine and totalitarian and authoritarian movements popping up all over the world in various different countries, including mine. We are being more and more affected by social media's ability to control our narratives and control who we talk to and what we see via the algorithms. And I could yell about that forever, but I'm not going to in this particular video. And it feels like we're kind of already living that dystopian future that a lot of us wrote stories about before we started living it. Except we don't yet have cyber implants or like flying cars. But we do have self-driving cars that are suspiciously problematic sometimes, and mega corporations that are working on cybernetic implants, so I guess we're not that far from cyberpunk. It's just not in the fun way. Like, we've got AI images and words that are hard to distinguish from human content. There's advertising everywhere we turn and look. There's an endless stream of products that we buy for the dopamine and then just throw away not long after because they're honestly not that great. Like, I don't know if you've heard about them, but like the Labubu thing is absolutely what I'm talking about here, is like a prime example of this. Influencers tell us what to think, what to wear, what to eat, drink, all of that stuff, and people just kind of lean into it. And with all that being the case, reading about stories that are dark and grim and pose no real hope and are set in those situations is not super appealing because it makes us feel kind of hopeless, which we already sort of do because we're there. It's no longer like a spooky future that we can avoid. It's no longer, ooh, fiction, fiction. It feels like we're writing about something that we're already living. And honestly, for a lot of us, that is not the best feeling, if I'm. That's just kind of how it is. I'm not a psychologist, but I have been in therapy for like 20 years. And I have done a ton of intense work and study both on my own healing and how to help others go through things. I have taken courses in grief counseling and substance abuse, all kinds of stuff, and I've lived a lot of those things. I've never been addicted to substances, but I have been very close to people who have been, and I've walked with them from beginning to end of that journey. And I don't know a lot of things about many kinds of psychological struggles, but I understand trauma intimately from a whole lot of different angles, both lived and studied. And what happened during the pandemic, during 2020 and 2022, like between that space, was incredibly traumatizing. Not saying that things aren't now, but like that was uniquely traumatizing. And what's happening right now in America with ICE and all of that it's a lot. What's happening in Gaza is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. In Ukraine and everywhere it turn, like every time I look at the news, it feels like I'm losing more rights here in the United States. There's more vitriol in our politics than I've ever seen in my lifetime. There is so much going on, and people are still experiencing trauma after trauma after trauma about all of these things. And trauma, for the record, is more than just a car crash or like a war. It's more than just being the victim of a horrific crime, things like that. It's way more insidious than that. It can just be an experience of feeling like you are being threatened and living in fear, even if the reality is you're safe. That feeling of living in fear is traumatizing. And the brain will do certain neurochemical things in response to that. It's really both fascinating and horrible. So, with all of this bearing down on us, and many of us feeling like we're drowning in it, is it any wonder that right now everybody's kind of looking for something softer in a lot of ways? Cozy and Hopepunk are similar in the sense that they're both kind of stories that are written to heal people. They offer like reassurance of knowing that there's a happy ending at the end of the book, no matter how bad the circumstances might seem, and that fighting the bad guys, particularly in the case of Hopepunk, really matters. And in Cozy, it's small acts of everyday living, like making a cup of tea, spending time with friends. We can find healing in both of those different things when the world feels like too much. And it's kind of a shared experience of seeking healing in different ways. A lot of people think it's tempting to kind of write cozy off as worthless fluff, but for a lot of people, it's serving an important and vital psychological purpose for mental health and well being. Because, like I said, these stories heal. They provide space for people to catch their breath, to feel embraced, and to feel a sense of security and like predictability so that they know what's coming. And these moments are absolutely necessary for people to heal, particularly when they're in the middle of trauma or trying to heal from trauma. Like those moments of calm and breathing are really important. And this kind of safety and security offers grounding in a way that many other genres just don't. And that offers a specific kind of healing and breathing space, where hope punk, alternatively, is sometimes ignored as idealistic because, it doesn't have all the morally gray stuff as often and there's so much complexity. It tends to be just like good and evil in certain ways. But it's more clear and straightforward that the good guys are doing good, even if they've got some troubled pasts or are struggling with things, and the bad guys are usually bad. This is also important and has psychological health benefits because it creates this predictability and ability to know what's coming. The fact that the good guys triumph offers a sense of accomplishment and the idea that we can actually be successful in a way that matters against whatever darkness it is we're fighting even when things seem like really grim. And we can defeat our overlords, whatever those overlords are in our life. And that's why these genres are making such a big splash right now, and that's why they're so everywhere. They're fulfilling needs people have in their worlds, and it's doing things that art kind of does best. It offers comfort to those who need comfort, as well as challenging the world order in ways it needs to be challenged, like Hopepunk, standing up to the bad guys. Like I said in the beginning, drop your favorite cozy or Hopepunk works down in the comments. They can be books or movies or TV shows or podcasts or art pieces, I don't care what. And alternatively, if you don't know of any in that genre, you can share works that you go to when the world feels like it's too much. Even if it's not cozy or hope punk, just let me know what kind of gets you through the tough times. What helps you feel that sense of security again? I hope this episode made you think a little, at least, about the genres, because they aren't really talked about, they're just kind of seen everywhere. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please consider subscribing to Authority wherever you find this and dropping me a like to let me know that this is something you enjoyed. And if you feel like supporting my content through financial means, you can subscribe over on Substack. There's really not that much behind the paywall, but know that you will help me continue to make content like this in the future so that I can continue having these conversations. Thank you so much for your time, and stay safe. I will see you in the next video.